In today's video, we're going to discuss questing. So there's actually a number of different ways that you can set up a quest in Max. There's going to be some more, but they're not ready yet. So I'm going to demonstrate what we have to work with today, and we'll consider this sort of a part one. And as the additional behaviors become available, we'll continue our discussion in part two. So for now, here I am in this quaint little village, and you can see that there's really nobody around. Everybody's gone, except for this one adventurer here. So let's just have a chat. Just going to interact with him. And he says, everyone else is out doing adventures, but I can't. I dropped my sword running away from a skunk. I've got plenty of loot anyway, so if you find it, keep it. So, okay, I'm going to accept that quest. And if we press L, we can see we have the quest in our quest log. Okay, but we can't do anything about it. I can't kill a skunk. I don't have a weapon. So I'm just going to move on to the next thing. We'll look around the town some more. Alright, here's a quest right here. Let's view the quests. Sorry, the store's closed. I'm out on another adventure. Help yourself to some pink gerbera out back for the inconvenience. Alright, so take that quest. So again, we have the quest in our log. Out back here, here's our flowers. So I'm just going to collect those. Okay, and you can hear the little quest completed bell that kind of tells you that the quest was completed. I collected enough flowers. So great. Let's go over here. Some nice livestock. And we'll view this quest. It says, I'm off on another adventure. Please see to it that my sheep get fed. I promise to bring back you some treasure. Alright, so we'll take that. So we just gotta feed the sheep. We've got some feed over here. So we'll pick up the feed. And we will bring it to the sheep. Here's the trough. There we go. So again, you hear that tone. But no, there's another quest right over there. So that wasn't there before. Let's see what this one says. This says, I almost forgot, the livestock need water too. Be a sport, make sure to top off the troughs. Okay. So now we gotta find some water. And here's a bucket. So we'll just take that bucket and bring it on over to these troughs. These must be the water troughs. There we go. Oh, you know what I did? I forgot to make this have gravity. That's why it's just floating there. But you get the idea. Alright, there's one more. And it's over here by the wizard shop. There we go. Do this quest. It says, see that rock over there? I trapped my old nemesis inside. Use this hammer to destroy the rock and I'll send you a reward. Magically. Okay, cool. So let's take the sledgehammer. Ye old sledgehammer. Alright, and destroy the rock. Boom! Quest complete. Now we have a weapon. So let's return back to our friend the knight. And if we'll recall, our quest log, let's see, we click on the right quest. Everybody's out doing the adventures, right? So we gotta go find the skunk so we can get his sword. Oh, there's the skunk right there. Great. Let's see if I can kill it with this thing. It's not easy to do. Oh, there we go. Good, I got him. All right. So the sword is right there, right on cue. Pick that up. Quest complete. Should be complete anyways. Yeah. There it goes. Quest complete. Okay. So that is the types of quests that we have available today. So we have a collect quest. We have a delivery quest. We had a destroy quest. And then we had kind of a riff on the destroy quest, which was to destroy and collect. Right. So let's go see how those are all set up. All right. So let's start with our friend, the humble quest giver. So it doesn't have to be a knight, obviously, and it doesn't even have to be medieval, right? I mean, a quest can be a lot of different things. It could be a mission, right? Maybe it's a mission to go and rescue the hostages. You know, you've got a more modern, like, first-person shooter style game, or there's many different kinds of scenarios, but any kind of mission or quest, right? You can have a quest giver, and this particular behavior is specific to character models, right? So you'll notice that I used a character model here, and I used a piece of paper. Doesn't have to be a paper either. It could be anything, right? But these are two different behaviors, and I'll explain more when we get to those. But let's just focus on the quest giver, which is a NPC. And the reason it's different is this NPC has the ability to do speech. So I could have done like a voiceover or added some AI generated voice to it, rather than a screen that you have to read. But I elected to just keep it simple and write out all the quests. First things first, let's start with the general settings, right? So we have the physics on, show at the start of level. These are all just typical physics on type behaviors. It's a character, so we have character collision. Is a mobile. I mean, you can say yes, you can say no. I guess it depends on if character has animation, if he's moving around. Always active. That's important. Him of himself is not an objective, and he's not a collectible, so we'll leave those unchecked. So we have the behavior assigned. The range is just how far away you can be from the quest giver. The prompt to interact with it, the HUD screen that it's going to bring up when you interact with it. Now, I want to point something out because this was not obvious to me right away. But notice that the name of the entity, the identity of this item or this model, this character, is Lost Sword, right? So it's not, night. It's not, it's not anything. It's the name of the quest, right? The name of the model is the name of the quest, and that's really important. So let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to delete this quest. Okay, and the name of the quest here is Lost Sword. So if I say, I don't know, Lost Shield, right, and I click Create Quest, that's the name of the quest, and that's what's going to show up. So how you name the entity is really important because that's how the quest is going to be named and identified. So just keep that in mind. You guys have seen this before. This is just the speech playback. You can either record your own voice or you can add your own WAV file or whatever sound file you have. These two sound elements are for accepting the quest and completing the quest. And you heard that in the other types of quests, which we'll review. I didn't elect to do it in this one. So let's look at the quest settings. So in this case, well, since I just deleted this quest, this is how it's comes out in the beginning. So these first three lines are for the quest description. They're pretty short, but you can fill out a little bit of it, make sure it doesn't run off the side, and then move on to the next line, but kind of keep it brief. And that's kind of what the voiceover is for if you need something a little bit more long-winded. The quest object. So the type of quest, we either have a collect quest, a destroy quest, or a delivery quest. But either way, whether you're doing one or the other, there's always an object involved, right? You either have to destroy something or collect something or deliver something, right? It's always about an object. And that's what goes in the quest object, is the name of the entity that is the focus of the quest. The quest receiver is optional. If it's a collect quest, you're not collecting it to give to somebody. That would be a delivery quest. It's your only objective is to collect these things. So in my case, like for the flowers, for example, my only objective was to collect the flowers. So the object was the name of the flower. And I didn't have a quest receiver because that's just not the type of quest it was. That would only apply to delivery quests, in which case you would give the name of the entity receiving the items. And bear in mind, the receiver of the items doesn't need to be the same entity that gave you the quest, right? It might make sense logically to give the sword back to the knight, but in the feed quest, we got the quest from a piece of paper. We collected the feed, and then we delivered it to a trough, right? So a third party or a third entity. So that would be the quest receiver in delivery quest scenarios. The quest level has to do with the level that the player is, right? So now all of a sudden, character's level comes into play. We talked about this in the player HUD video. So if you haven't already watched that, I would encourage you to go back and watch that and try to understand that player HUD, because I give a lot of specific information about how levels work, how the questing can be used to provide XP for leveling. And so all of that is part of the planning phase of your progression for the game. But quest level ultimately just means what level does the player need to be in order to accept this quest. And I just left mine all at 1 just to make it simple, but you can progress the quest over time. Okay, quest points, quest value. Let's see, quest points is going to be how much XP do you get, and the quest value is going to come down to the money earned, if money is a thing in your game. May not be, but that's just going to be your XP and your monetary reward. Then you have your quest status. So this is by default, it's inactive, right? And 99% of the time, you're going to leave that inactive because you want to go and pick up the quest and accept the quest. The other 1% is going to be something like you want that quest to be active immediately when the game starts or when the level starts. So a good example that came to mind, if you've ever played 7 Days to Die and you start a new character, you start out with a beginning quest, and that's part of your tutorial basically to craft a rock axe and craft some clothing and things like that. In that case, the quest would be active immediately. And then quest activate. What that means is when this quest is completed, it can activate something, right? So let's pretend for a moment that this rock was inactive. It's not shown at the start of the level. If I put rock boulder in that spot, into quest activate, then what would happen is when I turn in the quest, it would activate the boulder, which means it would become visible, right? So that's just one really quick off the cuff example, but you can imagine you can chain quests, right? Or you can chain actions. Maybe it's a particle effect that you want to display, or a mob that you want to spawn when you turn in the quest. Any number of different scenarios that I can think of, but that's what that field does. All right, so let's go take a look at some of the other quest setups. They're all pretty much the same except for this one, and I'll explain why we have a trigger zone there in a moment. Let's take a look at this one. So this was the collect quest. So just like I said, we put in the description for the quest. That's just going to bother me if I don't fix that. There we go. We put the precise name of the object we're collecting, right? Not what we want it to be, what it really actually is, right? So we put that there. I just copied and pasted it. The quest receiver, it's a collect quest. So just like I said before, we're not turning them in. It's just as soon as I've got enough of these flowers, we're done. Quest level, we talked about all of these other things. All of these are basically exactly the same. The only difference is quest quantity. So for collect, I had to collect 3 flowers in order for it to be completed. And so as soon as I had 3 of those objects in my inventory, it said, bang, quest completed. So that's really the main difference there. Okay. Let's see here. Let's go and take a look at... Go. So this is a delivery quest, and this was a 2-parter. So the delivery quest, if you'll recall, was I needed to feed the sheep. And so here's the item that I'm picking up. It's called grain. I have to deliver it to the quest receiver, which is the food trough. And that's just the name of the item. And then notice that in the quest activate, I'm activating a trigger zone. So what I'm doing here is this item, this other quest, is not shown at the beginning of the level. It's invisible. It's there. You just can't see it. And the only way to activate it is through this trigger zone. Right now, I've got it off to the side, and I intentionally avoided it in the demonstration. But remember, we said that if we put quest activate, if we put the name of the entity that we want to activate down here in this spot, then when the quest is turned in and completed, it activates that item. That item is logic linked. So let me see if I can get to, there we go. See, it's logic linked to that. So it activates it, it makes it visible. And so that's how we can chain quests. We can make one dependent on the next. Okay. Let's see here. Here's the trough. And it really, in all cases, when it comes to delivery, well, actually, you know what? Let's start with the grain. Let's start with the grain. It's going to be the same thing with the bucket, with the water. So I won't go over both. It's literally the same concepts. Okay, so first of all, we have an item that is physically, interactable, right? So it's we're going to show it at the start of the level. It's affected by gravity. That's the one thing I didn't do with the bucket. I think that was the problem. I see. Yeah, see, because I have physics off. That was my mistake. So really, if I'd done that, then the bucket would just drop to the ground. So we have, let's see here. No, all this stuff is pretty normal, right? The collision shape and is it mobile? I mean, I could say it is a mobile, and if I didn't want it moving around, but it didn't matter. The three things that matter: it's an objective, right? So it's part of that quest. It's the quest objective. So I flagged it as an objective. It's collectible. We've talked about collectibles in previous videos, but I'll just briefly go over this. When you select is collectible, notice that this panel here, collectible settings, appears. You open that up and you type in the name of the item, the value of the item, the rest of this stuff, item container, item ingredients, all of this is covered in the previous HUD videos. So I don't want to get into too granular detail for that, but suffice it to say for the questing, it's not important. Okay. If you want to learn more about those settings, go and take a look at, previous HUD videos like inventory and containers, things like that. Okay. So we have our collectible item, there we go. Collect object is the behavior for that. So it's important to have the right behavior attached to it. Okay. Sorry. There we go. And we don't need it to be a resource because it's not part of a recipe or a spell or something like that. So we can leave that unchecked. All right. So we have the item that we collect. Now we need to deliver it. So we go over to this trough and we set this up. Once again, physics on, all that stuff is just normal, physical object in the world kind of stuff. Always active because we want it to be available for us to interact with. Is objective, right? Doesn't have a behavior. It's just named in the quest receiver, right? When we, in this field here, the quest receiver is the food trough. And so, sorry about that. So the name of the item is food trough. So it just ticks and ties back so it knows what to be interactable when you have the item to interact with. Okay. So hopefully that's clear. So that's delivery quests. We have destroy quests next. So in this case, I needed a way to destroy something, so I just left a little sledgehammer there. A lot of this is very much the same. We select destroy quest. We tell it what is the object of our quest. What are we going to destroy, which is rock boulder. Everything else is essentially, the same as everything. There's really nothing different about this. It's probably maybe one of the easier ones. The only other thing I'll show you is that this boulder, in order for it to make it destructible, what I did was I made it explodable. And then I took the explosion damage down to just 1 so I wouldn't kill myself blowing up the rock. If you have an object that has a destructible animation, you might choose to do that. I think there's a crate, for example, that has that kind of destructible behavior, well, animation to it. It's just part of the object, part of the model. You could use that, and when it reaches 0 health points, essentially, then it would run its animation. In the future, Lee has talked about having objects destruct. So basically anything would be destructible. You could set anything to be like this building, for example, theoretically could be destructible, or the glass within the window or whatever it is would. And I don't understand a lot of that. But what little I do understand is that it basically takes that object and breaks it into smaller pieces, so that it appears to shatter. That's the best I can do for that for now. We'll cover that when the time comes. Okay, but that's what I did. Is I just made it explodable like a barrel, and it just blew up. That was good enough to complete the quest. That was it. Just destroy the rock. Did it. Done. But that gave me the hammer. So that brought me back to the skunk. So you remember this guy lost his sword when he was running away from the skunk, and he said, you know what, if you find it, keep it. Okay. So we have a skunk. He traveled a little ways, so that was fortunate for me. So he's over here. So this is just going back to the animal behaviors. So if you haven't seen that, I think that was like the first video I did, and we talked about animal behaviors. So this is just a generic mammal. And so if you haven't seen that, by all means, go back and look, but it's pretty self-explanatory. You just attach the behavior and away you go. He just walks around. You do have to have a model that has animation, right? So the skunk is available. You could use the skunk. There's a couple other animals available. Or if you have an animation, like an animal with animation, you could use anything really. Okay. So, the skunk is the item that it's the thing that we need to destroy, right? So if I don't have that set up anymore because I got rid of the quest, but the knight's quest was a destroy quest, okay? And he said go destroy the skunk, okay? So how did we get the sword to drop once the skunk was killed? Well, that is a different behavior altogether. I set that up on this boulder. It really doesn't matter where you put it, just some object in the scene. Set up NPC item drop. And this is pretty self-explanatory too. This is the name of the NPC that's going to drop the item. And this is the name of the item that is going to drop, right? So that item is hidden, just like in the inventory or the vendor HUD videos that I did before. You always want your objects that are collectible to be somewhere in the scene. It can be hidden. It can be, under a rock, on a roof, wherever it is, but it needs to be somewhere. It needs to exist physically so that it can, know what that object is. And you're going to set this up the same way that you do any other collectible object, right? It's got to be a physical object. It's always active. It's an objective. It's collectible. You have collectible settings where you're naming the object and providing all the collectible details for the database. And make sure that you're selecting the collect object behavior. So that's referenced now, right? It's the item that's going to drop when the skunk dies. So I destroyed the skunk, and then the sword dropped. Now I'll point out that there was a little bit of a delay for the sword to drop. I thought maybe it would be as a matter of distance away from the quest, like the item, the entity that was going to drop the sword. I don't know how true that is, to be perfectly honest. I haven't play tested it enough to determine what that delay is from, but I believe that'll be worked out and improved in the future. So for now, just understand that it may have a slight delay. It could also be my computer. For all I know, I really don't know. Just bear that in mind. If you don't see it drop right away, just wait a second. Okay. And if it still doesn't drop, then start going through your set, right? Like your setup. Make sure that you named it appropriately, right? Make sure you've got all the collectible settings set up appropriately and so forth. Just run down your list and you'll find the error if there is one. Okay, but it should just drop, fairly quickly, right? I believe that is all of the setup for these. Now, I mentioned before, I'm considering this sort of a part one of quests because I'm aware that there are other kinds of quests that one might want to achieve in the future, but they're just not possible at this point in time as of the making of this video. So let me give you an example. Let's suppose we wanted a quest where we had to protect the knight because he's unarmed, right? And there's going to be trolls spawning and we have to protect the knight for a period of time or until the number of trolls are killed or something like that. Or maybe we need to escort the knight from where he's standing there back to his home or something like that. Who knows? There's other variations of these kinds of quests. And I'm sure if you've played enough games, you've probably seen riffs on these same three quest types. But at the end of the day, every quest that you've ever done is always going to be either a collect quest, a destroy quest, or a delivery quest of some kind. It's a riff on one of those three tropes. If I'm wrong, if you can think of a quest type that's not covered by one of those three, please leave it in the comments below. I will absolutely, suggest that. If you can provide detail, then I will absolutely suggest, adding something like that. But right now it's, I think pretty much everything's covered by these three, but those variations that I mentioned, having it depend on a timer or on a spawner or having the NPC walk from one location to the next, those things aren't really something that I'm prepared to demonstrate or put together now, but in the future I will. So we'll call that quest, this part two of this quest demo. Okay. But for now, that's it. That's all I've got to say on the subject. If you enjoyed the video or if you learned something new, by all means, click that like button below. That helps me out a lot. If you're new here or if you just haven't already subscribed, I don't know what you're waiting for. I'm going to be doing new videos all the time, so I'd love to have you back. Be sure to click that subscribe button. And if you haven't already done so, if you want notifications for when new videos come out, just click the bell icon. It'll notify you as soon as a new video is uploaded, okay? And that's it. Thanks so much for your time and watching all the way through. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.